we're going to be reviewing for topic 11 some vocabulary terms that you should already be familiar with at this time. So these are things that you should already know before starting this topic, but just as kind of a refresher, we're going to review them. The first word that I want to talk about is difference. The answer when you are solving an equation that is a subtraction equation would be called the difference. So for example, 150 minus 100 equals 50. This answer right here, we would call that the difference. Another way that we can determine, or another term, that we talk about when we're using subtraction is decrease. 150 decreased by this amount of 100 to give us a difference of 50. So decrease is just when the number goes down. The original number is going to decrease. So the past tense of that would be decreased with the D at the end. Going on, another term that we're going to be talking about, well, I guess I can even do both of these at the same time. We've got greater than and less than. When I think about this, I think of the symbols that are associated with the two. If I was talking first about greater than, if I talked about the number 256 and I said it was greater than 129. So this symbol right here indicates greater than. This number is much larger than that. It's greater, it's bigger, so we're going to call that greater than. And then the symbol this way, a lot of times we think of that alligator as eating the bigger number. You probably have heard a lot about that in first grade, and then here this year in second grade, you've also heard that as well. So it should be pretty familiar to you. And then if I was just going to flip these numbers around and put the 129 on one side, and then I think I had 256. Don't hate me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to memorize all of this stuff. So anywho, I would say less than. 129 is less than 256. This number is smaller in comparison to this other number over here. This one has fewer hundreds and fewer tens and fewer ones in comparison with this number. It is less than, it doesn't have the same value. So we've gone over a few of these. The next word that I would like to speak about, or I guess the next term, because it's more of a vocabulary term that we're going to talk about, is counting on. I wrote myself a little example problem for this. The example problem that I have, 800 minus 589 equals something. When I'm thinking about counting on, usually I think about the open number line as a way to show counting on. So for my open number line, if I'm counting on, it means I'm going up on that open number line, so I'm going to start with the smaller number. If I was choosing to go counting back, then I would be starting with the larger number. But since we're doing counting on, I'm starting with the small number, which is that second number that is being subtracted. So 589. And I'm going to count on until I get to 800. So when I stop over here, I want it to be at the number 800. So 589, first I want to try to get that to the next 10. So I'm going to just add 1. So 589 plus 1 more, 590. Now I want to add another 10 to get that to the next 100. So that brings us to 600. I need 2 more 100 in order to get to the 800 mark. So 600 plus 100 is 700 plus 100 is 800. Now, you might be tempted to mark that 800 is your answer, but it's not your answer. And 589 is also not the difference of those two numbers. I'm looking up here at the tippy top area. That'll tell me what I'm going to write into this box. So if I add 100 plus 100, so 200 plus 10, 210 plus 1 more is 211. So the difference between these two numbers is 211. And we used the strategy counting on. We were jumping up and going onward and upward. The next strategy I'm going to show you is counting back. I'm going to take that same equation, but I'm going to use the open number line to show counting back. We're going to erase this difference. Even though it should be the same difference, we want to make sure we get to that same answer. All right, so counting back, draw your open number line. We are starting at the larger number here, 800, and we're going to jump backwards until we get to 589. Now I'm going to start with some jumps. First, I'm going to subtract 100. That gets me to 700. Now I'm going to subtract another 100. Oh, 600. No. Hold on. Subtracting only 100. My bad. All right, so minus 100. Notice how these are subtracting, and then when we were doing counting on, we were adding up there. So pay attention. That was something important as well. So counting back, 700 minus 100, this goes right here where the 600 is. Now, if I subtracted another 100, that would get me only to 500, which would be too small of an answer. That would not be correct. So I'm going to start doing a little jumps. I'm going to go and do a little jump to get to minus 10. I'm going to get to 590. Now I'm going to subtract one more to get to 589, because that was my stop spot. So I kept on subtracting until I got to this other number. So I subtracted the 589. And this was with counting back. And you know what? I could have done it a different way too. So I was counting back and I stopped at 589. And if I look back here, I can find out how much did I subtract, and that'll tell me what the difference is. So 100 plus 100 is 200. Add 10 to 10, we've got 211. There's another way we can show counting back. So this is a total of 3 ways. And this way also would have you, excuse me, starting at 800. Now notice I put that all the way over to the right. This one would require you to subtract 500, subtract 80, and subtract 9. So it's a lot more jumping, but it is another way to get this done. I'm going to, you know what, I don't want to do this. I'm going to push the easy button. Instead of doing 5 little jumps of 100, I'm going to just do a large jump of 500. I feel like you guys should be able to do that too. At this point in the year, getting ready for 3rd grade, y'all should be able to do a big old jump of 500. So first I'm going to subtract the 500. That's going to get me, so 800, take away 5 from the hundreds. Okay, that gives me 300. Now I'm going to take away 80. So remember, when I look at this 300, if I'm taking away 8 from my tens, I can also think of this 300 as being 30 in the tens. So if I'm taking away 8 of those tens, 30 take away 8 is 22. Now I'm going to just add the 0 to show that it's the tens. So I subtracted 80. Now I'm going to subtract 9. 220 take away 9. I can think about this as 20 minus 9, which would be 11. And I'm going to keep my 2 in the hundreds. So I subtracted 9. For you might want to do it a little bit differently. You can do tiny little ones if that's still something that you're comfortable with. But for me and where I expect you all to be, I expect you to be able to do some of these bigger jumps. So I've taken apart 589 minus 500 minus 80 minus 9, and I stopped at 211, which is the difference between 800 and 589. The last thing that I want to talk about is partial differences. This is something that we have been discussing. Before this time, we didn't do partial differences within the hundreds. So the thing that you should already know for this topic before we even begin is partial differences doing tens and ones. So if I had 56 minus 43, let's say, I would start with subtracting my tens. So 5 tens minus 4 tens is 10. Yeah, 10. 6 ones minus 3 ones is 3. And then if I look at this, I just add these two together. These are my partial differences. So 10 plus the 3 is 13. So the difference between 56 and 43 is 13. First I subtracted the 4 tens, and then I subtracted the 3 tens. Another way that this could look is instead of starting with that same number, you could have, so let's say it's still 56 minus 43 equals something. You could start 56 and then just say minus 40. So 56 minus 40 leaves you with 16, and then break it again and say minus the 3. So 16 minus the 3 is 13. So that's just another way that could be done as well. So both of these, I'm just breaking this apart and saying 40 minus the 3. You can see that I've got the 40 right here and the 3 right here. So there's a couple different ways that you can tackle that. Having the background knowledge really fresh with doing partial sums last topic is also really going to help you out. So this is just a vocab refresher. Going into topic 11, we'll dive into some of this a little bit more and also add in some extra vocabulary as we go along. Take care.